Hello, this is EKOW Simpson. Thank you very much for checking on my YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. This channel seeks to bridge the gap between brothers and sisters from the diaspora to brothers and sisters living right here on the motherland. This is Africa, how beautiful Africa is. Make sure you subscribe, tell your friends about this, and let's build Africa to the world.
Come follow me to a secret place where only the moon.
Hey, thank you for checking me out. This is EKOW Simpson. Like I keep saying, we're trying to bridge Africans in the diaspora and then Africans right here on the motherland. And guess what? Today being Friday, 29th of November, I have the singular honor to speak to yeah, Yabaka Fanti. The baby American made accident as I check in YouTube at I say or African brother, or he's from Ghana, but he's been in the state for a while. And today we're going to talk about few things when it comes to Africans from here traveling out there, the experiences and all that. So I'll let him introduce himself, what he does in the United States, and then we'll take it from there. Brother Akwaba.
That's it. So my name is Kwesi Ado, actually Samuel Kwesi Ado. My maternal side is from Cape Coast, Jejano, Emisechi, near the castle. Yeah. So all the fishermen they over there, they all relatives. Yeah. My father's side is from Ekwapim, Ekropon, Kofoda, Eastern region. So just that alone, my family members, they go from Sekendi all the way up to Ekwapim, Eastern region. I think just about every town or city, there's some relative that lives in there. But when I was about 7 years old, my mother preceded me to the U.S. by 3 years, and she settled herself in New York. And so after being established for 3 years, she came and got me. At the time, I was going to Takrady International Schools, like a military school, uniform there. So I was already prepared for U.S. because I went to a school that was teaching English. So when I arrived in New York, the English, although I sounded like a British person in New York, I was prepared to understand and communicate very effectively with the American environment. So I've been living in New York for 4 decades and plus. But one of the attributes of my mother and her wisdom and her affection for being Ghanaian, being a fancy, she always kept us connected to our roots. So every summer she will bring us to Ghana, keep us here for summer. In fact, she's gone and she has passed since about a year and a half. But the question you pose is a very interesting question. It's a question that I've been studying ever since I was 8 years old. So if you follow the timeline, I arrived in New York when I was about 7 going on 8. Yeah. So about 8 years old, I began to study African history, African American history, Africans in the diaspora, world history, the history of civilization, history of humanity, and the history of religion. So I began to study all of those things at 8 years old. But my awareness about slavery began there in New York. Again, me a fancy me if you Cape Coast. Yeah. That castle there, I used to pass there. So I will be passing this castle all the time. Every day, yeah. Every day. In fact, before the castle there, I will close my eyes so I don't see the castle until I get to Frekwako. So it wasn't until I was in public school in New York where the teacher was teaching slavery and what they would call African history. They always begin with African history with slavery. But the teacher showed a picture of the Cape Coast Castle.
Cape Coast Castle.
It's even to my son say, hey, net, I said, well, Trey, that be my roots. That be the place where they pass all the time. So unique for me, I was a child in New York in the American educational system being taught about slavery, and for me it wasn't a textbook experience.
Yeah.
It was my actual roots. In fact, a Cape Coast Jejano, my family history goes back to 1700. So I saw this thing, and the information that they were providing was alien to what I know. So what is slavery? I mean, I just came from the place not too long. I mean, I didn't. The narrative amongst Fanciful, what's it, Cape Coast were in there. They send people in Kuala they send them into the place, and then they never come back.
Oh, okay. That was what they were.
That was a rural oral tradition that all small children. So it was used in a way of trying to keep children in order.
Okay. Okay. That if you mess up, you might land.
They'll put you inside the castle, and then you never come back.
Okay.
Which there was some historic truth, but it wasn't told to the people around in the proper fashion.
Yeah.
As in, just amongst ourselves now, without textbook and school, we don't really orally speak of slavery in a way that when I will go and put what's it.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in, so I'm processing, and then afterwards I told the teacher, "Oh, I'm from over there." Now, the American education system, the teachers and the students will never, and I say never, have an actual representation of the history that they teaching.
Yeah.
And see, for me to stand up and say, "Oh,
you know about this?"
Yeah, I know. I live down the road. I can stand on my great grandmother's house and then
see the castle.
So she thought I was, embellishing, and so they go check my name. So my name says Samuel Kwesi Ado. Obviously, it's not an American name.
It's an African name.
So she has some acceptance that I was African. Where from Africa? There she don't know. So they go check my parents' name. My mother's name is Lucy Taylor. Lucy A. Taylor. Okay. Lucy A. Taylor is an English name. So if you see that and then the child say I'm African, you make it you full of story. You are lying. But the Taylor is actually Tavia.
Okay.
The Roman Catholic nuns now ministry the missionaries. Cape Coast. And see, they just rewrite the name in what they thought it sounded like. And see, so eventually, my mother came. She verified that I want me fee. And see, it gave some validity of my origin. But the history of slavery and African people is so short-lived. They talk about it for about 3 days, and then they move on to the white people, the pilgrims, and the American fantasy narrative. Okay. But at the time, when I arrived in America, there was a social adjustment, because those of us who are from Cape Coast, from Ghana, from Africa, we don't have to really struggle about our skin color and where we belong in the scheme of the society. Okay. And then be a cocoa, be a tuntun, be a kasi, be a small, so we don't. In one family, you could have 6 different shades. So we don't really. But once you land there in America, you realize that the color of your skin and the degree of shade also determine how people respond, respect, and behave towards you.
Wow.
And see, I was even discriminated amongst black people themselves, because one, I was the tallest person in class. I was the darkest person in class, and I had the weirdest name. In fact, I used Samuel Ado and didn't use Kwesi because I didn't want to be this guy, he's African. So that was one part. The second part is that because of how the white people have programmed African Americans and African Caribbeans about their African heritage, many black people resented themselves. Okay. So when they were in fact, you think about 1980, 81, 82. If a black person was watching TV in America, did they see a white Tarzan swinging from one tree to another tree, speaking to monkeys and lions and giraffes, and speaking to them in a way that even the Africans who are from Africa couldn't speak to the lion. So it takes a white man for swing from one tree to another tree to communicate with Africa, nature, and everything. So you as an African or a black person, you didn't, and then the Africans who are in that script were portrayed as primitive, barbaric. They eat people head, and they. So just from the visual stuff on TV, the programming for Africans and black people to hate themselves came on TV all the time. All the time. Every time you saw a black person, they were a monkey, they were this, they were bad, they were criminals, they were robbing, they were stealing, they were killing. You would never see in an effective way in TV.
Positive.
No. And if it was even said about Africa, we were carnivals. Wow. We were barbarians. We were living in trees. We were hungry, famine, big stomach, flies all over.